Hello everyone, welcome back to Pixel Village and I'm Radha Krishnan. We're going to be talking about filmmaking this time. Okay, not exactly filmmaking, something related to filmmaking. Now, there were clearly two separate segments in filmmaking. One is fortunate enough to be backed by deep pockets. Okay, they had all the conveniences in the world, let it be equipments, production, cast, crew, you name it, they all had that. The other one is called, it's almost like a movement called the independent filmmaking. They are called the indie filmmakers. They usually work on a shoestring budget, sometimes no budget. Beg, borrow equipments and request friends to pose, and they basically worked with limited resources, skeletal crew, all that. And they never got to enjoy all those liberties or freedom of production which the big budget or reasonably funded movie production had. Now, while great casts and costumes and locations and things like that are still beyond the reach of an indie producer, technologically, lots of things have become accessible to them. And in this video, we're going to be talking about one such product which has made the life of a cinematographer and a director very easy. And I'm going to be talking about a video transmitter which was actually available for the privileged class. This is from Hollyland. This one is called MARS 400S. So they look like identical twins. Okay, if there were no markings, you will get actually confused. They are so similar. So this is the transmitter and this is the receiver. This goes on to the transmitting device, which in our case a camera, and this goes on to a receiving device. We will see which are they as we progress in the video. Very simple, easy to set up and use. Both have SDI and HDMI input capability, which means this is compatible with a whole host of cameras, and an SDI HDMI output capability too. And both can be powered by a very common, very popular Sony NPF batteries, and of course also by an external power source. And it's very easy, like I said, to install, set up and use. Let's look at who all will be benefited by a product like this. We have identified about 4 different areas where this can be of great help. The first one is we can use this very effectively for the director's monitor. Usually the director breathes down the shoulders of the cinematographer. In the olden days, the cinematographer, in fact, was the eye of the director. He had to go entirely by what the cinematographer saw through that optical viewfinder. Subsequently came the television assist, then the digital cameras gave multiple possibilities. But even now, you needed a tethered connection with your digital camera to view that monitor, which is not usually possible. If the cinematographer is out in a kind of a difficult situation and the director wants to sit in comfort with, let's say, probably with the producer alongside and probably a few assistant directors around him, and you want to watch on a monitor, it's very easy. Now, here is our cameraman. Okay, so I'm the cinematographer. I'm set because setting up is damn easy. Here is this Hollyland. This is the MARS 400. It gets connected onto a cold shoe Very simple connection. You can power it with a Sony NPF or connect it using the battery source, from a V-mount, take a D-tap and connect it. And the HDMI cable gets connected on to the input of the transmitter. I'm ready. Well, I can record internally, but loop an HDMI connection for the director. Okay. Well, as you can see, I am very comfortably positioned, cozy. I'm having my coffee while those guys are really, going through all that stress and all that, whatever, the cinematographers go through. He's sending those signals through the transmitter. The receiver is receiving it through the HDMI cable. My monitor, the director's monitor, is receiving it, and I can see what he's doing. And I'm going to be communicating with him and the talent using my microphone. Okay, standing by, and roll camera, and action. Cut. The second one is remote focus pulling. Well, the focus pulling or a focus puller is a full-time profession in cinematography and in filmmaking. A very respected, very responsible position that is. And a cinematographer blindly has to trust him to track the focus of the character or the talent who is moving in his field. Now, in the olden days, the focus puller had to be extremely careful and vigilant because he had no visual reference. The viewfinder is with the cinematographer. He had to really trust his experience, his brain, and do a visual. As in seeing the talent moving, he had to make the focus pulling decisions. Subsequently, in digital cameras, he started getting a small monitor of his own so that he can do the focus pulling. Now, that's probably not really possible if the camera is moving and the cameraman had to make very complex camera movements. Well, physically pulling the focus become a little difficult. Now, in such situations, this can be of a big boon. And the remote focusing device also has now become very affordable compared to what was available till very recently. And let's see how that is done. Okay, I'm going to be filming with a gimbal. I'm using the MOZA Air 2. And instead of using a follow focus, which is built in the camera, I have decided to use a cinema lens. In this case, I'm using a SAMYANG VDSLR lens. There is a reason why a VDSLR cine lens or cinema lens is preferred over, let's say, a mirrorless lens or a DSLR lens. It's another video altogether, but just remember, a cine lens has its own characteristics. So if you are into serious filming, a VDSLR or a cinema lens, a cine lens of any make is what you should ideally go for. And this one is one of the most affordable one. Okay, that being said, that is a manual lens, and you cannot obviously expect the camera to track the focus, which means you need to manually focus it. On a gimbal, it's not possible to manually do the focus pulling. And for that, I have attached an IFOCUS, again a MOZA product here, which can be remotely controlled using a wireless remote device by the focus puller. I need to worry only about my movement. Because it's cinema, because it is motion picture, my movements are practiced, rehearsed. I know from what place to what place I need to walk, move, whatever. Talent movement is again fixed, so we have rehearsed it. And my focus puller is not with the camera, running with the camera. He is standing with the remote viewfinder or the field monitor, and he is using his thumb control or the remote focus control device to pull the focus. I'm standing by. Now here the video receiver is connected to a 4K Lilliput field monitor using an HDMI cable. I also have a sunshade so that in the bright outdoors I can still very comfortably see the footage. This is my thumb control for the remote follow focus control, and I can do my fine control. By the way, this is a highly calibratable and very cost-effective remote follow focus device from MOZA, and I am using that to pull the focus remotely. And while doing the follow focus, remember to switch the transmitter into speed mode to reduce the latency. And another interesting feature of the Hollyland MARS series is that you can connect it to your mobile phone using the app, and in which case you don't really require a receiver nor a field monitor. Your mobile phone becomes the monitor. It's very easy to set up. Now the third one is for remote video recording. Obviously, since it is video recording, we will set the transmitter to image mode, meaning it is going to give more importance to the quality of the image. The speed is not very important at that stage, and the receiver automatically identifies it and receives the signal and passes it on to a recorder. Unfortunately, only 1080p Full HD is all that is available now from Hollyland. Yes, if you have deep pockets, again, big productions, yes, you can get 4K transmitters, but you're talking about tons of money. Let's see how this is done. Okay, now what we have is a filmmaking kit on a budget. DSLR, mirrorless, anything with VDSLR lens, kind of a budget fluid head. This is a Sirui, and in such scenario, the cinematographer, filmmaker come under a couple of stress points. One, powering it continuously for a longer time. Second, storage of the data that is shot, and the duration of the footage. There are three stress points. Sometimes you run out of power because you're shooting internally and you're constantly previewing it. Second, the card itself sometimes is in some, kind of difficult position that once the card gets full, you have to actually take the camera off the tripod. It's a time-consuming job to, copy the card. And the third one is the duration of each take. So you have a time limitation in most cameras. Now with the Hollyland MARS 400, that all those limitations are gone to a great extent. With a small limitation, this can transmit only 1080 up to 60 frames only. So there is no 4K. Of course, like I said, 4K is available. Phenomenally expensive. Since we are talking about budget indie cinematographer, filmmaker, 1080, that's what you have to live with. But there is now a solution. So here we are, and my recordist is standing by. Well, the concept is very simple. He is transmitting the video signal. I am receiving it through the HDMI cable. The signal goes into my ATOMOS SHOGUN recorder. I have a 1 terabyte SSD on it, so unlimited recording almost. And I have a very powerful battery backing it up. So I'm ready to record as long as he wants to shoot. The fourth one is for multi-camera setup. Well, the multi-camera setups these days are used very frequently by wedding photographers. Well, I've seen these Star Sports and ESPN Sports and all these sports channels. They actually have a huge Boeing, you know, one of those 747 full of cameras and cables to actually, when they set out, go out to shoot these sports events. They have to physically connect the camera using a cable with the control room, which will be somewhere in the stadium. Well, can you imagine if you have about 30, 40 cameras covering a stadium and cables? It'll be miles and miles of cables. Well, with a device like this, you can completely do away with the cables. The cameraman can freely move in the venue, and the control room or the live switching or live broadcasting or live recording station can be anywhere in the stadium with a line in sight with the cameraman. That's all. Let's see how that is done. All right, so we are ready for our multicam live switching setup. Remember, we are still on a budget, so I'm using a Blackmagic Studio HD, and I have multiple camera signals coming in. This is just symbolic, okay? Ideally, you will have, or even in fact, actually, you will have multiple receivers receiving the corresponding camera signals. It's fed into the live switcher, and this is my monitor. I look at this monitor and decide which one to switch, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, this is a typical multicam setup, one of the camera setup. This one, as you can see, is a highly mobile setup, usually used by wedding photographers, wedding videographers, event videographers who requires lots of movement and cannot afford to have a cable running from the camera to the console. What I am using is a Sirui Monopod. It's a very cost-effective but yet very solid video setup. I have a camcorder, I got a kit lens on it, and as you can see, I have a communicator. This is the EARTEC. And someone is constantly instructing me what to do. How is he seeing the footage? Is from here. This is going to, transmit my HDMI connection on to the receiver, and he has a live switching unit. He can also record it. He can decide to go live with it. He can decide to telecast it, whatever. This guy makes the life of the videographer very easy. He can move around wherever he wants within that range. Now, let me switch it on. I need to set the channel, switch on my camera, and I'm ready. I'm waiting for his instruction, like I said. Camera 4, I think you should run to the front of the stage. Okay, now. Oh, there. Let me go. This product is currently available in India. It sells around 35,000-40,000 Indian rupees. We'll try and add a link if we find one. And I know a lot of cinematographers, a lot of wedding photographers, a lot of people who cover events with multiple cameras, and we all in the studio too is using and putting this into good use. We now started getting hooked on to the convenience that this guy offers. Try it. Probably you also will get hooked on to this convenience. Who doesn't? Bye for now.